Today I'm going to be ranking some of the most hated and loved Angry Birds games that there is. There is a lot of Angry Birds games in the series, and this will get difficult as there was some that were loved and now were hated, but we're going to get this done. And trust me, these are going to get progressively harder the deeper we get in this video. Let's get this into a ranking system and let's see if you agree with me. So starting with a game that we all know and love, Angry Birds Epic. First released in 2014, it was a turn-based RPG game, and it was a bold departure from the standard slingshot gameplay that we got in the Angry Birds franchise. It had a lot of features that fans loved, like the strategic combat, the equipment crafting, and the very well done story-driven adventure. Fans loved the depth and the variety that it just had compared to the other games in the Angry Birds franchise. We all know Angry Birds Epic, so let's just get straight into ranking this amazing one first. And here you can see the amazing tier system we have. We have a couple of rankings, obviously being Flame Emoji, which is going to be the highest rating we have, A all the way down to D, D being the worst. Matter of fact, let's change this to F, because we're going to consider this basically a failure compared to the rest of them. Obviously, we have Angry Birds Epic, and we're going to rank it. So Angry Birds Epic, an amazing game overall, but turning into a hated game, it didn't really do that as well as some of the other games. So we can put this on the lower end of the scale. So we're gonna start with Flame being the most worst that it was. Like, if it was a love game, how badly did it turn? And trust me, some of these, were for a treat. It goes on a bit of a trip. Angry Birds Space, first released in 2012, and Angry Birds Space took us to new worlds, to say, and it took the classic formula of slinging birds at pigs and green pigs and weird structures to a new level with planetoid based gravity effects on things. It just worked wonders, and it was a big hit, especially for the time in 2012, taking the world by storm. And this game was one of the most loved in the franchise, and obviously was sadly taken away in the 2019 removal of half the store. So where does this rank in some of the love games turned hated? Angry Birds Space, one of the golden era games of Angry Birds. Wonderful game, did a lot of things well, but once it was removed, didn't really go as bad as people may think it was. Definitely did not. Had this little reboot in some of the newer games, Angry Birds Reloaded to be exact. Being a paid game, so I can see some negatives behind this game, and some of the unused content of this game was unbelievable. If you didn't see my past video, go watch that. It tells you some of the unseen content this game was supposed to have on PC versions. Looked really promising, but again, was one of those games that just didn't be hated after it was once loved. So we can put this a little below Angry Birds Epic. It's just not really a hated game at all. Okay, now let's move on to a game that's going to shake up this list a lot, and that's going to be Angry Birds Go. Angry Birds Go was a 3D car racing game that a lot of you know, and a lot of you either love or hate it, because it was a beloved game that once it was, let's say, upgraded to a newer version that's being 2.0, it had a lot of feedback that wasn't as of positive as Rovio would like to say it was. So in the ranking system, this is going to throw off the rest of these, and it's quite interesting. Angry Birds Go. Wow, an amazing game, and obviously I put the Angry Birds icon number 2.0 update on it because it was very controversial. The way this game went from unbelievably loved in 1.0 or 1.2, whatever version of the original game that was updated, to 2.0 was one of the biggest switch ups I've ever seen in this franchise, which is insane. I think we can all agree that this game deserves F, because it just was and I'm playing. It was a violation of just the whole Angry Birds Go community. I see people out there, let's be for real, a lot of people out there don't mind it at all and think the hate is overdue. But some of the upgrades, I can't see where a lot of you come from for just saying that the 2.0 update was just terrible. And it's reasonable. There's back into it, just not as good as the original, but it's all opinion based, just like this tier list. Ooh, let's get a nice game that started off the series, Angry Birds. It's obviously being the first game in the whole franchise, starting off the slingshot game. It was quite iconic for the time it was released back in 2009, being a long time ago. And this game had a very, very controversial background to it once it's been through a couple of things back in the 2019 up to now. One of the very few games that was actually re-released and had a paid premium access to it. We'll talk about that a bit more in a second. Let's just get to ranking. Yep. Look at this. I want to point out before we go any further, I made sure to get the icon that had free on the top left, just to show that this game was once free. And before it got removed in 2019, yes, the original game was removed by Rovio. The game that started the whole business was removed. Crazy. and they decided to bring it back and call it something else instead of Angry Birds. I know, wild yet again. They wanted to call it Red's First Flight. And not only that, they wanted to charge money for that, which is insane. Nobody wants. Let's just move on. Next up, we have a game that I feel like is severely underrated in the Angry Birds community, being Angry Birds Fight. A lot of people out there know this game for being released in 2015 and being a match 3 game. I know a lot of these are terrible, but imagine you get a good match 3 game and you mix it with Angry Birds Epic, one of the best games in the Angry Birds catalog. You get this masterpiece of a game where it had a lot in depth, and I feel like I don't give it enough love on this channel for what it actually is. So I'm going to make a video on this alone, but let's just rank this on the tier list. Everybody look at this beauty of a game that Angry Birds Fight was. It's an amazing game that I think everybody should try, even if they haven't tried it. And I'm pretty sure there's a mod pack called Angry Birds Fight Reloaded or Rebooted that you should just try out. And this is an exceptional game. One down there is one of the games that I never really see hate going towards it. Some people do say it's a little overrated, but I don't think it's overrated at all. I think this is a wonderful game and you should try it out. Honestly, perfect. And we have Angry Birds Stella, released in 2014 and bringing a whole new cast of birds, a new flock, new mechanics, new vibe, and just a new protagonist to the Angry Birds game. It was a beautiful spin on the original game that was just dominated by Red. We all know Red, so they decided to switch it up, introduce some girl characters, and this went pretty well, but was obviously tragically affected by the 2019 wipe of all the franchise. And I do see some things that just weren't beloved by fans on this game. So that brings us to the ranking of Angry Birds Stella. Angry Birds Stella being a good game overall, not being one of the best ones, honestly, in my personal opinions. Again, my opinion, it's not factual, it's just how I perceive the game. So don't violate with this placement. I'm gonna put it in B. Honestly, it's just an average game, not too destructive that it's near either the original game or Angry Birds Epic, but definitely not around the amount of love and nostalgia really from these games down here. So we're just gonna put it smack dab in the middle, just an average game. Now we have a game that we once mentioned before, but we didn't get into much detail, being Angry Birds Reloaded, being the iOS exclusive, which is wild in this series because this game has been ported to literally everything and anything. It's quite hard to see a game that also just costs money exclusively. So being a device exclusive and then costing money really brings down the audience that this game was made for. Having some beautiful graphics, some of the best graphics in the whole series in my personal opinions, but having some of the worst negatives in this series. And overall, this is bringing us to the ranking system. We have Angry Birds Reloaded right here, and obviously I think it has some great aspects to the game, like it having a refresher of this game right here, Angry Birds Space, that has a brand new version. Also has a lot of things taken from other games that are refreshed and brought into it, bringing it amazingly. But the negatives are so bad, I just feel like it deserves a spot in A. It could have been done a lot better, being a free release game and released to both devices and just been a refresher of the original game. Not being a sequel that we might get onto next, but also just being a refresher to the game, which would have been a remaster, which would have been amazing to see. Now we have the amazing spin on the Angry Birds series, being Angry Birds Star Wars 1 and 2 are going to be included into 1 because it's just a sequel of the original game, which isn't really much difference. Obviously just having the prequels. And anyways, being a Star Wars spin on the Angry Birds game, it was nice to see each bird having their own unique spin, but was sadly removing in 2019, which does come into factor its placement on this listing. But overall, being an exceptional game, bringing all the worlds from Star Wars over to Angry Birds, I guess, and just doing it quite well. Angry Birds Star Wars onto the amazing ranking system. We're going to get this done over and quickly because it was sadly removed, I believe, for a licensing reason between Rovio and Disney, not fully bringing them and allowing them to release the game. So it's not really of a bad thing it was released, but it's not really going to affect the ranking too bad. I'm going to put it behind Angry Birds Epic, which I think is a pretty nice placement for the game. Another spin-off that Rovio decided to do, being Angry Birds Rio, released in 2011 and tied into the Rio movie that was released the same year or the previous. Anyways, it stood as a unique setting to the game, being one of the few games released quite after the original game and bringing a fresh new effect, appeal, and just aspects of the game that was really appealing to players. The thing about Angry Birds Rio is it's not a game I hear much of people missing or feeling. They obviously feel a bit of nostalgia like all these games. It's just not a game I feel people say they miss as much as the rest of these games. So I feel we can for sure put this as an F. It's just a game that nobody really has a problem with being removed. Obviously we want it back. It's nice to have, but it's gone and nobody really wants it. Like, I'm pretty sure you'd want all of these games towards the left of it back rather than Rio. So it's not really a problem I'd like to see. And I'm gonna put it here. Yeah, it just seems right, really. You just can't talk about the original game and not talk about the sequel to the original game, being Angry Birds 2, first released in 2015, a direct sequel to the original game. It introduced a lot of new things, especially improved graphics, multi-stage levels, which was the first in the series. We don't really count Angry Birds Epic because it wasn't really a typical slingshot game, but it made it somewhat stay true to the series roots, but it did include a lot of microtransactions that did change up a lot of the appeal to fans that the game had, and then going to a life system that you'd have to pay. And also I now heard that it moved to another thing that I just don't know of, but yeah, it's gone through a rough patch, really. Ooh, the Angry Birds sequel. There's a lot of things great, there's a lot of things terrible, but it's one in the franchise. One of the there's too many in this franchise, to be honest. There's too many games. We gotta cut them all down, okay? I want the original, the sequel, and that's it. No, but this game does have a spot in the series, and I feel like it's just not fully there yet. I feel like with the way they're moving the games towards, when they had the life system right here, right here, nearly on the way there. But what they did with the life system, it just brings it to A. Honestly, I feel like this is a decent ranking for all these 10 games that we have ranked today. And for sure, if you have any things you change, let me know, because it's my opinion and you might raise some points that will change the ranking of these games. So let me know your thoughts. Let me know anything I did wrong. I'll see you in the next one. Make sure to join the Discord.